The warrior who acts out of honor cannot fail. His duty is honor itself. Even his death, if it is honorable, is a reward and can be no failure. For it has come through duty. Seek honor as you act, therefore, and you will know no fear. The loyalist Primarchs are beloved by all subjects of his Imperium, though only some are venerated as true paragons of virtue, their legacies enduring as symbols of sacrifice, honor, and conquest. Yet there is one Primarch whom epitomizes the Emperor's will more than any of his brothers. An empire builder, patrician statesman, and valiant warrior. A man of indomitable will, cold reason, and preternatural intelligence. Primarch of the 13th Legion, Roboute Guilliman. As the infant Primarchs were scattered amongst the stars, Roboute Guilliman would land on the planet of Macragge. A robust civilization with its own laws and governing bodies, the young Primarch would be found by a group of noblemen within the sprawl of a hunting ground forest. Discovering a glowing capsule surrounded by an aura of light, the nobleman would bring the child to Connor Guilliman, one of two governing consuls whom ruled Macragge. With the arrival of the infant, Macragge's populace had reported several oddities and strange tidings that befell the planet. Connor himself had dreamt of the Emperor of mankind. In his dream, he walked to the foot of Hera's Fall, within the valley of Laponis. As he awoke from his slumber, the nobleman would bring the child to Connor. In light of the strange phenomena and his own visions, Connor would adopt the child, naming him Roboute, translated from Macragge's dialect as Great One. With the help of Connor's seneschal, Tarasha Uten, Roboute would grow into a wise and courageous man. At the age of 10, he had mastered the finer points of history, philosophical contemplations, and science, surpassing even the elders whom had mentored him. As a military commander, his strategic mind was unmatched. In light of this, Connor Guilliman would grant his son command of an expeditionary force that would venture into the Illyrian region of Macragge, a mountainous region to the north, the wilds of which were home to wild men, which harassed the city's populace. As the campaign waged, Guilliman would occupy various shrines throughout the region, forcing the hand of the Illyrians to engage his forces on his terms, to which Guilliman would challenge their chieftain to single combat. Using only defensive blocks and parries, Guilliman would exhaust his opponent, and when the battle had ended, Roboute would gift the chieftain with a prized relic that the people of Macragge's past had stolen. Preventing unnecessary losses of life, Guilliman's acumen would win over the wild men of the north, whom relented in their attacks on the populace of Macragge. The people were safe, and the Illyrians would never harm them again. Yet as Roboute returned to his capital, he found his home and his people in a state of chaos. Connor's co-consul, Galen, had incited a coup to overthrow the Guillimans and seize control of Macragge for himself. Watching Galen's army sacking the city, Roboute instructed his men to secure the capital whilst he ventured to the House of Consuls and lifted the siege. On his arrival, he would find his adoptive father fatally injured, and with Connor's dying breath, he would tell his son of Galen's betrayal. Roboute would reveal Galen's treachery to the assembled governing administrators, and amid a wave of support from the populace, would become the sole consul of Macragge. Now the most powerful man on Macragge, Roboute would enact his father's vision to change it into a meritocratic government and would purge the populace of the conspirators whom had followed Galen's orders. Unbeknownst to Roboute, his true father, the Emperor of Mankind, had been observing his actions since the battles fought between his armies and the wild men of the Illyrian region. From the neighbouring planet of Espandor, he would observe but be impeded from contacting Macragge due to rampant warp storms which embroiled the system. 5 years would pass until the storms would subside, and the Emperor would venture to Macragge personally to meet his son. Within the lapse of time, Macragge now stood as a bountiful planet that was self-sufficient, prosperous, and equipped with both a strong military and abundant trade networks. Roboute would bend his knee to join the Imperium. Impressed with his son's prowess as a ruler, the Emperor would relocate the 13th Legion's forward base to Macragge and give Guilliman command of his legion, now renamed the Ultramarines. As the Great Crusade waged, the Ultramarines would prove to be one of the most effective legions in bringing in planets under compliance. With exception to Horus Lupercal's Lunar Wolves, no other Adeptus Astartes legion would conquer as many worlds, as fast, and with such a rate of compliance during the Crusade. With each conquered world, Guilliman would not leave until the planet's people had a robust means to defend themselves, technologically flourish, enact trade, and govern effectively within the Imperium. For Guilliman, the well-being of the world's people was of utmost importance. Macragge would be overhauled with the insight of Guilliman's hand-picked advisors, bolstering itself and its surrounding planet's military and enabling a constant flow of new recruits to join the Ultramarines Legion. Combined with the Legion's rare casualty rate due to Guilliman's tactical genius, the 13th Legion grew into the most numerically superior of all the Adeptus Astartes legions. The Emperor would value the Ultramarines' vast numbers and utilize them often as his personal hand of judgment, with his most infamous decision being to order Guilliman and the Ultramarines to accompany himself to confront Lorgar Aurelian, Primarch of the Word-Bearers, on the Imperium-compliant world of Monarchia. Used as a hammer blow to shame the 17th Legion, the Ultramarines would oversee the destruction of Monarchia. The idolatrous inhabitants led astray by Lorgar, the Emperor would purge the planet of worshipping his likeness, to which Guilliman would forever feel discomfort for his legion's involvement, the result of which would lead to the Ultramarines' greatest betrayal. With the Horus Heresy making its crucial first steps, the War Master would command the Ultramarines to station their forces within the Viridian system at the planet of Calth. During a joint operation to build trust and cohesion between the Ultramarines and Word-Bearers, Lorgar's men would launch a surprise attack and cause devastating losses to the 13th Legion. Lorgar would attempt to assassinate Guilliman with the use of demon forces and jettison Roboute into space without a helmet. Guilliman would fight the Word-Bearers in the vacuum of space and reboard his ship. Commanding his men to counterattack Lorgar's forces, he would end the battle by confronting Khor Pharaon, the Dark Cardinal of the 17th Legion. Offering Roboute to join the forces of Chaos, Roboute would respond by ripping one of the hearts from the first captain's chest. Reinstating the chapter's Librarius, Guilliman would return to Macragge with all haste, finding the planet under attack by Primarchs Lorgar and Angron of the World Eaters Legion, a battle that would be known as the Shadow Crusade. Joining forces with Sanguinius and his legion of Blood Angels, the Loyalist Astartes would engage the traitor forces, attempting to destroy the Ultramar system. Driving the traitors from Ultramar, Guilliman would pursue the Word-Bearers and World Eater forces to the homeworld of Angron, Nuceria. As the three legions clashed, Guilliman would face Lorgar Aurelian in single combat. Observing his brother to be empowered by Chaos, Guilliman would match his brother's attacks until Angron's intervention. As the two traitor Primarchs fought Guilliman, he would be overwhelmed. Yet before being cut down by the Red Angel, he would be saved by his valiant sons, swarming the Primarch of the World Eaters as the Ultramarines retrieved their father. Tending to his wounds, Guilliman and his legion would be cut off from the wider Imperium by the Ruin Storm. Fearing that the Imperium had been lost, Roboute would found the Imperium Secundus, creating a secondary empire to act as a contingency. Refusing the title of Emperor of this new Imperium, Roboute would look to his brothers, whom had likewise been stranded by the Ruin Storm, naming his brother Sanguinius as Emperor's Regent. Imperium Secundus would be plagued by the actions of Konrad Curze during its founding, orchestrating suicide bombings, terror attacks, and raids on Macragge's populace. With the intervention of Lionel Johnson and his Dark Angels Legion, Curze would be brought to heel, though not without friction between the Primarchs and their methods of rooting out the Night Haunter. With Curze captured, the three Primarchs would attempt to breach the Ruin Storm and aid in the defense of Holy Terror, due to the Night Haunter's visions, giving credence to the Emperor and his Imperium's continued survival. Venturing to the world of Davin, Roboute, the Lion, and Sanguinius would attempt to uncover truths pertaining to Horus's betrayal from the world with which his path of corruption had begun. Upon arriving on the planet, the Primarchs would discover the temple with which Horus's body had been claimed by Chaos. Sanguinius would be dragged through a warp-spawned portal and demons would spill forth, preventing Guilliman and the Lion from aiding their brother. As Sanguinius bested the demon Medeal within the portal, the temple would collapse. The three Loyalist legions would evacuate Davin and destroy the demon-spawning planet with cyclonic torpedoes, destroying the anchor point with which the demons traversed into the material realm. With the planet's destruction, a breach in the warp storm would appear, leading directly to Holy Terra. Yet Horus would foresee this development and send the Alpha Legion to blockade it. Guilliman and the Lion would distract the 20th Legion, while Sanguinius would traverse the breach, facing his destiny in the defense of Holy Terra. With his path to Terra lost, Guilliman and the Ultramarines would never reach its sacred soil during its time of greatest need. With all haste, Guilliman would travel to Terra and force Horus Lupercal's hand in ending the war by attempting to kill the Emperor, before the 13th Legion could add their might to the Loyalist defense. Arriving on Terra, Roboute would discover his father's wounded body interred on the Golden Throne. Absent from the final assault on the Imperial Palace, Roboute now commanded the most powerful legion within the Imperium. The Ultramarines spared the decimation endured by the other legions. Given the title of Lord Commander of the Imperium, Roboute would deploy his legion in the subsequent years to aid in the reclamation of planets enthralled by the forces of chaos and rebellion. Roboute would draft the Codex Astartes and limit the size of the Loyalist legions to prevent any from following in the path of overwhelming might first abused by Horus Lupercal and his traitorous brothers. Guilliman would also venture forth to bring his brother Primarchs, whom had betrayed the Imperium, to justice, killing Primarch Alfarius of the 20th Legion on the planet of Escrador, and eventually facing Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children during the Battle of Tessala. Facing the reborn Demon Prince, Guilliman would be greatly outmatched by his corrupted brother, resulting in him being mortally wounded by Fulgrim's poisoned blade. As the Demon Prince of Slaanesh retreated into the Eye of Terror, Guilliman would fall into a coma, tended by his legion's apothecaries and interred inside a stasis field. For 10,000 years, Roboute Guilliman would lay dormant as the Imperium of Man corroded and fell to ruin as he slept, though one day he would awaken and avenge his Imperium. I am the fist, clenched tight in ceramite, smashing with the force of a legion. I am the blade, awaiting my foe's flesh, as keen as the Emperor could make me. I am the bolt, fired from afar, fleet and true, an end to all who stand before the Imperium of Man. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Sons of Nocturne, stoke your forge, for in my next Vox transmission, we retell the tale of the Perpetual Primarch, Vulcan.